a mother's hope. I am an old man now, but I still remember her face, the face of a mother who never lost hope. Mrs. Clark was an old woman. She lived alone in a small house at the end of the street. Her son, John, went to war 20 years ago. People said he was dead, but she did not believe them. Every morning she sat by the window. She watched the road. She waited. "John will come home," she always said. The neighbours shook their heads. "Poor woman," they whispered. "She is waiting for a ghost." Seasons passed. Years went by. The world changed, but Mrs. Clark did not. Her hair turned white. Her hands grew weak. But her heart stayed strong. She told everyone, "One day he will walk through that door." No one believed her. Some people felt sorry for her. Others laughed. "She is old," they said. "She does not understand." But Mrs. Clark did not care. She kept her son's room clean. She cooked his favourite meals. She never lost hope. Then, one cold evening, there was a knock on the door. Mrs. Clark's heart jumped. She stood up slowly. Her hands shook. Could it be him? She took a deep breath and opened the door. A tall man stood there. His face was strong. His eyes were kind. He looked at her and said, "Mom, it's me." Mrs. Clark gasped. Her eyes filled with tears. Was this real, or was she dreaming? Mrs. Clark stared at the man. Her hands trembled. Her heart beat fast. The man took a step closer. "Mom, it's me, John," he said again. His voice was deep but gentle. Tears filled her eyes. She touched his face. It was warm. It was real. "John," she whispered. "Is it really you?" John nodded. "Yes, Mom, I'm home." For a moment she could not move. Could this be true? For 20 years she had waited. People told her she was crazy. They told her to forget. But now her son was standing in front of her. She pulled him into her arms. She held him tightly, afraid he might disappear. "I knew you would come back," she said. "I never stopped believing." John hugged her back. "I'm sorry, Mom," he whispered. "I wanted to come home sooner." Mrs. Clark wiped her tears. She looked at him carefully. He was not the boy she remembered. He was a man now. His face had lines. His hands were rough. His eyes held stories she did not know. She held his hands and led him inside. "Come," she said. "You must be hungry." John smiled. "I missed your cooking," he said. She laughed softly. "And I missed you, my son." The house felt warm again. After 20 years, Mrs. Clark was not alone anymore. Mrs. Clark placed a warm plate of food on the table. Her hands were still shaking. She could not stop looking at John. John sat down and smiled. "It smells just like I remember," he said. Mrs. Clark sat across from him. "Eat, my son," she said. "You must be tired." John took a bite. He closed his eyes for a moment. "It tastes like home," he whispered. Mrs. Clark watched him. She still could not believe it. 20 years. She had waited for so long. Now her son was here, sitting at her table. After a few minutes, she spoke softly. "Where have you been, John?" John put his spoon down. His smile faded. He looked at his hands. "It's a long story, Mom." Mrs. Clark reached for his hand. "I have time," she said. John took a deep breath. "The war was terrible," he began. "I was captured. I was far away in a place where no one could find me." Mrs. Clark's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, my boy," she whispered. John squeezed her hand. "I never stopped thinking about home," he said. "I never stopped thinking about you." Mrs. Clark nodded. "And I never stopped waiting," she said. "I always knew you were alive." John looked at her with soft eyes. "I know, Mom," he said. "Your love brought me back." For the first time in 20 years, Mrs. Clark's heart was at peace. Her son had come home. The night was quiet. A small lamp lit the room as Mrs. Clark and John sat together. She held his hand, afraid to let go. For 20 years she had dreamed of this moment. Now it was real. John looked around the house. Everything was the same. The old wooden chairs, the small clock on the wall, the family pictures. His picture was still there, covered in dust. "You kept everything," he said softly. Mrs. Clark smiled. "Of course, my son. I never lost hope. I knew you would return." John sighed. "Mom, it wasn't easy. There were times I thought I would never come home." His voice was heavy. "I was a prisoner for years. I was lost, far from here. No one knew where I was." Tears filled Mrs. Clark's eyes. "Oh, my dear boy, you suffered so much." John nodded. "But I never forgot your face. I never forgot your voice. Every night I closed my eyes and heard you calling my name. That gave me strength. I told myself I must survive. My mother is waiting for me." Mrs. Clark wiped her tears. She held his face in her hands. "And I did wait, John. No one believed me. They said I was old and foolish. They told me to forget. But a mother never forgets." John kissed her hands. "I am sorry I made you wait so long." She shook her head. "You are here now, that is all that matters." Outside the wind blew softly. Inside the house felt warm and full of love. John was home. After 20 years, Mrs. Clark's heart was whole again. The next morning the sun shone brightly through the window. Mrs. Clark woke up early, feeling lighter than she had in years. For the first time in 2 decades her heart was full of joy. She went to the kitchen and started preparing breakfast. The smell of fresh bread and warm tea filled the house. John walked in, stretching his arms. He looked at his mother and smiled. "Good morning, Mom," he said. His voice was soft but strong. Mrs. Clark placed a cup of tea in front of him and sat down. "Good morning, my son. Did you sleep well?" John nodded and took a sip of his tea. "Better than I have in years," he said. "This house, it still feels like home." Mrs. Clark smiled warmly. "Because it is your home, John, and it always will be." They sat in silence for a moment, enjoying the simple happiness of being together. Then Mrs. Clark looked at him seriously. "People must know you are back," she said. "For years they told me to forget. They laughed at me. But I always knew. Now they will see that I was right." John sighed. "Mom, I don't care what people say. I only care that I'm here with you." Mrs. Clark shook her head. "No, John, this is important. They must see that hope is never foolish. They must understand that a mother's love never fades." She stood up, walked to the door, and opened it wide. The morning air was crisp and fresh. She turned back to John and held out her hand. "Come, my son, let's show the world that love and hope never die." John took a deep breath, then stood up and walked beside her. Together they stepped outside into the sunlight. Mrs. Clark and John stepped outside. The village was quiet, but soon people began to notice them. Eyes widened. Mouths opened in shock. "It's John," someone whispered. "He's alive." Neighbours gathered around, staring in disbelief. For years they had told Mrs. Clark to move on. Now they saw the truth. Mrs. Clark held her head high. "I told you all," she said with pride. "My son was never gone. I never lost hope." John looked at his mother and smiled. "You were right, Mom. You always believed in me." Tears filled Mrs. Clark's eyes, but they were happy tears. After 20 years of waiting, her family was whole again.